So I will just give the check to, I don't know, whoever.
All right.
To the
We
secretary.
will call the
Oh.
meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Economic Development Committee. It's actually a joint meeting today with the Board of Selectmen members and the Planning Board. Usually when we start our meetings, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first thing I will do is I will continue the public hearing for the 5-year economic development plan. For those that may be watching for the first time or just getting involved, part of the mission of the Economic Development Committee, as set up by the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen and the bylaws, is to develop a 5-year economic development plan for the town. We don't have one today. The last plan that was ever really done has been the master plan, and that was back in 2000, which is 17 years ago. So what we're looking to do here is to actually put together a plan. And let me first thank the members of the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen for coming here this evening, because without you, this will never fly. I mean, it's one thing to have a plan, it's another thing to have buy-in and then eventually have it implemented and executed and actually show something as the results. But what we're striving to do is to basically take a look at all of the assets that the town has. What are everything from land available, businesses that are already here, what kind of businesses do we want in town? What does our infrastructure look like? Can we support those type of businesses? And then eventually develop a solid plan that everybody is all kind of marching to the same drummer to. And so it may require, on the planning board side, rezoning of a number of different areas. It may be working together as the various boards to apply for grants to help us get infrastructure in places where we simply don't have it. It's going to require, like, all of the boards to relook at all their regulations and make sure that they're streamlined, modernized. I mean, how can we make it accommodating for businesses to come into the area and have an atmosphere that is conducive to moving quickly with permitting and helping businesses find locations. But not only that, right, the model of Dudley, live, work, and play. Not only do we want to attract businesses to town, but also families. And so there's, another way to increase our tax base is to have new growth, but smart growth. Hey, Paul, have a seat. So, so we have the residential side, and again, planning board becomes very, very important to make sure that the zoning is suitable to bringing in the right type of development where we need it, so that we can attract families. And then, of course, there's the play side, and we'll be working closely with Parks and Rec and the library and others. So the people that live and work here, how can they enjoy, Dudley as well? And so, the Quinnebog River, Trailway and Bikeway is a great example. The Dudley Conservation Land Trust, the work that they do independently with all that land. But really what we're trying to do is just get a lot of minds together and come up with a really decent plan, something that's doable. We believe in, like, the SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable. Is it attainable? Is it relevant and time-bound? And so hopefully the plan that we develop has those elements. And when everything's said and done, and we have this plan, it's going to require the Board of Selectmen to do their part and execute on it, the Planning Board, and us as well on the Economic Development Committee. So this is, we were trying to make a circular table here out of squares, out of rectangles. So this is really a joint meeting. So please, I'm going to suspend Robert's Rules of Order, because I really like this to be conversational. We do have a guest here with us today, and I'm going to lead into her next. She's with Central Mass Regional Planning. Her name is Dominique DeTremble. Yes. And, Don Johnson had applied for a grant to help us build this economic development plan. And I'll turn it over to Dominique. You want to tell us a little?
Very well. Thank you all so much for having me out tonight. I really appreciate it. I know some of you from providing interim planning board assistance last year, and it's nice to see your faces again. So concerning the reason that I'm here tonight, Don Johnson successfully acquired funds through my agency for components of an economic development plan. Specifically, the District Local Technical Assistance Fund, DLTA, is provided through the legislature to regional planning agencies, and the purpose of that funding is to then allocate it in the form of assistance to communities. So we were able to provide a grant through that fund of 150 hours, and based on what I came up with Don, and I hope some of you have seen it, it's sort of envisioned as phase one of perhaps a 3-phase assistance program that we might be able to do for you. So this first phase is what I'd hope to talk to you a little bit about tonight. As we've laid it out so far, it includes an asset inventory, all of course relevant economic development, an asset inventory, a SWOT analysis, and some economic development visioning work resulting in a vision statement through working with the economic development community, residents, and all of you. So on that note, I've really been looking forward to speaking with you. My colleague Ron Barron will be my project partner. Some of you have his business card. He sends his hellos. He couldn't join us tonight, but you'll be hearing from him too. So on that, I guess I sort of envision tonight as a lot of preliminary information collecting, hearing from you. What we talk about tonight is up to you, but it can start to inform both the asset inventory and the SWOT analysis. If you wanted to go through some of the challenges you're facing here, some of what you see as strengths and opportunities, and some of your assets. The asset-based approach to economic development is a little bit different from what people often look at as economic development, where you look to attract some outside silver bullet manufacturer, industrial business, and it's very different in that asset-based economic development examines what do you have already, what's your competitive advantage, what makes you special, what makes you unique, and how do we leverage that into sustainable economic development that's resilient and desirable here. So right off the bat, do you have any questions for me? Who is CMRPC? What do we do?
So when you say asset inventory, what exactly? Are you talking infrastructure? Are you going to be providing us with infrastructure maps?
Yes. So in this case, what I've proposed, and it's flexible based on what I hear from you and what you need and want, but I've proposed a full-blown asset inventory, so basically all of the relevant categories. It won't include every single asset. It won't be exhaustive, but it will be everything key, primary, large that we can identify as key. So infrastructure, civic capacity, institutional capacity. I know you have Nichols here. Your vacant or underutilized industrial or commercial space, the natural, cultural, historic resources, really anything, open space, recreation. I know you have, I believe, the second most APR land here. Yep. So I think that there's something to hit on there, although I'm not quite sure yet how. So starting to identify what those key assets are. I know you have a really great reconnaissance report through, who is it? Is it the, I think it's Department of Environmental Protection, which has a nice sort of starting place for heritage inventory and some of the outdoor beautiful special things here. But I guess hoping to hear from you what makes Dudley special and where you think your strengths are.
Any questions from anybody so far?
Dominic, thank you very much for coming tonight. My name's Todd Donahoe. I've lived in Dudley for 8 years, in the area for about 15. To answer your question about what I think makes Dudley special is just the unique combination of, it's got a great history. It's I think agricultural. In regards to that being, I think, a large part of the community. However, we have such a potential to grow. We have, like you had mentioned, a great institution just right up the road in Nichols College. We do have, the ability to hold, businesses. We have larger companies like Gentex, Webco, things like that, and an amazing school system, and just a great sense of community. One of the things and one of the reasons why my family moved up the street from here was because we wanted to raise our family, our daughters, in a town that really looked after each other, had a wonderful school system, great activities, and just people that got involved, So that's what I think makes the town special. Things that I've always thought of that was missing in Dudley was the sense of we're in Dudley. There's no downtown, there's no town center or anything like that, even though I guess the center is up at Nichols College, I guess. But just something to, attract more businesses, but as John said, the kind of businesses that we want to, that we like to see coming in. How we can get more, younger, new families coming in to settle here. It's very close to Worcester, and I know, there's a lot of development going on in Worcester right now, and I just think that we have a huge opportunity for growth. The only other the question that I would have is, have you ever worked with like a town that might be similar to Dudley?
I'm working with several towns in the Blackstone Valley right now. So I'm a transplant. I'm from Maine. I've been here about 8 years. And the one thing I've realized is for all of the similarities in the 40 towns in our region, they are all so unique. So I'd have to give that more thought.
Okay. Anybody else?
Dominic, one of the things, I'd like to get you a copy of this. If we can grab one for her. What I'm trying to avoid with this economic development plan is the theoretical. I'm tired of 10,000-foot plans that always talk about things on a very high level. We have to remember, this is a 5-year plan. Yeah. We need things that are doable now, things that are doable 2 years from now, and then 5 years from now, and then we go into our next cycle. I actually went through a number of different states across the country, and Wisconsin, which has actually got tremendous economic growth. This is the template that they use for the communities in Wisconsin. They basically break it down into 5 areas of economic development: organizational development, infrastructure development, business development, workforce development, and community cash flow development. Where we need Central Mass Regional Planning, again, this is just my opinion, I need to get an idea. When we did the master plan, we knew exactly how many acres we had for industrial, right? How many we had for business. We redid the zoning. Probably need to do it again, simplify it. There's really just a couple of major corridors where we can really kind of put business in Dudley, but I need this plan to help us get money for the infrastructure so that we can make this stuff a reality. There was talk with all this APR land. Are you familiar with the North Fork of Long Island?
No, I'm not.
All right, North Fork of Long Island, right? Long Island looks like a big fish. Well, the top fin, they call it the North Fork, was very similar to Dudley, probably about 15, 20 years ago. It was agricultural, they were raising corn, they were far enough from the city, but their economy was kind of struggling, and so they decided to start planting, grapes.
Oh, okay.
And they've become the Napa Valley of the Northeast, and it's beautiful. And so as I walk and hike the different trails and I see all these wild grapes growing, and turns out that at one point, I guess there was a winery here in town. So what I'd like this plan to be able to do is to have the farmers and the people that own this land have some choices. So possibly, if they have some empty fields, is it worth? Can we give them some economic assistance to try and grow grapes?
Okay.
What is the opportunity, as much as I was opposed to it personally, it's the law now, is there an opportunity with the marijuana industry for our farmers? You know, breweries, right? These craft brewers are grown beautifully across the country, and I think they're going to be here for a little while. So are our current regulations compatible to allow a brewery into Dudley? And wouldn't it be great if they could get their crops locally to brew their beers, right? The hops and we have a brewmaster there. I mean, what's involved? What kind of ingredients? This is something that our farmers can grow.
Barley, wheat. There's a farm in Hadley, Valley Malt, and one of the requirements for a farmer's brewery license is that you get X amount of your ingredients from a local farmer. And they're booked. Valley Malt, they're booked. There are also some local hop farms, they're booked. There's definite growth potential there. I don't know, but I don't know the ins and outs of how to get into that. How do you convince a farmer to go from hay
Exactly.
to barley? Because the barley, it isn't the difference between barley and hay. You don't just harvest it and bale it and away you go. Somebody gives you $3 for a bale and out they go. You need to malt it. That involves a concrete floor, that involves time, there's a bit of an art to that.
Well, I certainly don't have those answers right now, but I would be very excited to work and find them out
All right.
Educate.
and help you to draft some strategies. So what I'm hearing, just off the cuff, we can do. So, as you said, rather than 5 miles, you want something really robust framework implementation, action steps, just something really, really applied.
Yeah, what can we do now with the limited resources we have? And then if we did get funding, what could we do?
Okay.
You know, we have Nichols College, right? Cornerstone tenant. People visit their kids. They have no place to stay. So how can we modernize our regs to be compatible with the Airbnbs or to promote local bed and breakfasts? How do we give the kids something to do that makes the local businesses money? You know, a little restaurant district possibly. You know, we have some wonderful industry too. Hankey Sass, Webco, how can we get a lot of that clean industry over here as well?
Access to the water.
Yeah.
That's something that makes us very unique. The taxes are still very appealing. You know, the tax rate, definitively.
It's like 11 something, right? Very, very low.
Our town is known for being very helpful. Every single of the departments in the town, you know, is helping, for what I know, new businesses, guiding them through, which is not always
No, not
something
always.
that is as common. So we're willing to help. I think we would need some help, maybe trying to market ourselves a little more, and we don't quite sure know how, because I'm sure there are some kind of regulations that we have to follow to protect our privacy. You know, John did the fabulous work with the website. We definitely have a tool now.
I
We
haven't
just don't
seen
know
that.
how to use it, or what are the rules that we have to follow, not to overstep. So definitely that.
Okay.
But access to the water and some kind of an art center for our teenagers would be something that I would love to see.
One of the immediate things we could use as part of these hours is the creation of a user-friendly map of Dudley that we can throw on a brochure. That our original idea was to have the zoning districts, but it's too complex. And so maybe take any district where business is allowed in any fashion and just kind of highlight it. And then say, you know, residential agricultural use, right? Residential agricultural use, this is the business, and we just want to kind of label it business-friendly district, but kind of a little street map.
Okay.
Because we have this brochure, like 90% done, and the map, we just look at it and it's like, well, we don't like that map.
My team just brought on a former architect with those sort of skills who could probably do a very nice 3D mock-up of it
Wonderful.
for you. So we can talk to her a little bit more about how that might look. So,
Great.
as you had mentioned, John, having these great ideas, but to implement them, a lot of times it seems that money is the big thing. So you can actually assist us in finding ways to get grants, to locate the money. So let's say we had this wonderful idea for a restaurant district, or for, something to do to, to assist in the farmers to making the transition from hay to, to getting into the hops. Is that part of your,
I didn't include that in the initial scope. That could definitely be, that's something we could do. Let's see. So I didn't necessarily denote it, but I think any good strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats analysis should have conclusions and recommendations, and we could certainly make those that.
Okay.
So recommendations for incentives, different types of programs, grant programs, different things you can do locally too. May I ask, are you a CPA town? Do you have a Community Preservation Act?
No.
No? Okay.
Can I ask, you keep talking about like a restaurant district. What is going on with Stevens Linen right now? Or no, what is going on with that? Stevens,
Stephen Lennon,
what's going on?
do you have an update on that
It's
one?
kind of on hold, or it's not going through anymore?
He's been on a bit of a roller coaster, Pam. He keeps coming to us to get the additional percentage waived in terms of taxes through the state. He still intends to build. As you know, he had to go out and get additional funding and additional partner because he's gone so long without the capital to turn that into housing units. The facility where the flea market is currently held is proposed to be torn down. That's that aluminum
Yep, I know.
framed area. He doesn't have, I did not see in any plans, planning board may have seen it, I haven't seen it,
Before my time, so.
plan for a restaurant in that facility. But I mean, that, I don't know if there's any retail, I haven't heard anything about any retail in that building at all. So I don't know
When
the
he was in
answer.
2 years ago, there was no, I asked that specific question. There was no intention of putting retail in. I asked if there would be space if they wanted to put like at least a convenience store in there, if you're gonna have 100+ apartments. Maybe that people could just have a place to go get a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And he said that they hadn't really thought about that, but he said there was a space that could be possibly used for that. That was about the extent of what they had for retail.
I mean, they're gonna struggle for final approval just with an adequate supply of water.
Yeah.
That's gonna be an issue for them. But I don't know of any plans for any retail in that facility that I've seen in the 2 or 3 evolutions of the planning. He's got a good architect working for him, there's no question
But
about it.
it's still in the planning stages, it hasn't, been thrown out or
It's already changed once significantly in terms of numbers and layout. I imagine by the time he's done, it will change yet one more time significantly. What's interesting is what happens if he doesn't
that's what I'm thinking.
utilize that facility as he's laid it out. That could be, and I'm sure that's why you asked the question, that could be an enormous asset.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right? Could be an enormous asset.
be a great downtown campus for Nichols.
Now, as that project is proposed right now, is it all market rate or is it mixed?
Again?
Is it all market rate or mixed income residential?
No, I mean, I haven't seen any requirements for special housing,
Okay.
all right? But the number of 1 and 2 bedroom and a few 3 bedrooms would increase school-age population, but not significantly. It all depends on what he finally does. There's an enormous, enormous amount of space in that building. I mean, you could put 6 of these buildings in there. There's a lot of, and
Yeah.
he's got tenants in the back.
Yeah, the last I heard was he was gonna try to target it towards the millennials,
Yep.
and, see, I heard that he was actually gonna do some retail on that first floor, but it was a funding issue because the residential was different than the commercial.
It'll be for the residents. It won't be a standout.
Okay.
I mean, like, we could certainly use an IHOP, all right? Or we could use some kind of competitive, not necessarily fast food, which IHOP isn't, but some kind of restaurant chain as an anchor along the way. And there's some decent property that is for sale. It all depends on the vision. And I think I heard Todd and John say, at least I think I heard, if not, it's what I wish I heard. I'm not sure which it is. Two of our biggest assets are also two of our biggest liabilities. Southbridge and Webster. Both have access to highways that we do not have direct access to. We are off the highway. And that should not be a liability. That's actually a plus, depending on what the final vision is. But we don't want to compete with the neighborhoods and the issues and the problems that Southbridge and Webster have. We don't want that. What we want is to be the haven in between. Farming is a phenomenal strength. The selectmen have a standing item on our agenda called Around Dudley Town, where we invite new businesses or businesses that are owned by people in town and the businesses are in town, or owned by people who are not in town but the businesses are in town. And we've got, and you'll hear later on about Dudley Days, we've got a nice bucolic profile to this town. And as someone said, the schools are phenomenal. The people are good. We need to know what and who we want to compete with and who we don't want to compete with. And in identifying them, we also want to know who we don't want to compete with that are assets for us, because they can be both. You know, so our biggest problem is one of our biggest problems is we need infrastructure. We need sewer and water along West Main Street, all the way up to Quinnebog, and then up 131, is it? To Southbridge. Years ago, there were conversations with Southbridge about letting us tie into their sewerage system. One of the key assets, what we have to do, we have to get a handle and get access to a water supply. And the best aquifer, probably within a 30-mile range, is the old Zajac Farm.
Oh, okay. That's,
Huge.
yeah.
That water has been tested, it's pure, its flow rate is far beyond what we need. The issue is that some of the Zajac heirs don't need the money. Other Zajac heirs would like to get the money. So if we could strategically come up with a plan to access that water, not take over the land, but access that water through a long-term lease, we could then look at the infrastructure out West Main through Quinnebog up to Southbridge. And that opens up a whole 35–40% of the town that right now is not open. And then we can control if it's clean industry, assembly, warehousing, or something else. I know Dickie Andrelevich is working on his site on Oxford Road, Dudley Oxford Ave. And I mean, we've all seen the work he's doing there. And I've talked to him a couple of times after the work started, and he said his plan is to bring in clean industry.
What, which business is this, or?
He owns Ramco.
Ramco, okay.
which is down on Schofield Ave. But that road is utilized only from the Oxford side of the Oxford-Dudley line, where IPG Photonics, which is one of the largest makers of lasers for a variety of industries, medical and otherwise, and they've got, their world headquarters is on that road. It's, I don't know, 2,200 people that work there in several different plants. But you hit the Dudley line, and it's barren. So, and we've got access to some sewer and water there. All right, so we've got some good assets. We just need to put them in a vision that's appropriate for the town. But that all comes from your question.
John?
Yeah.
I sat in on a meeting with the owner and the contractor for the mill complex.
For the Stevens Linen Mill?
Stevens Linen, yeah. And one of the things that I asked them was, because there were no plans for any commercial on the first floor, which, you know, we'd all love to see. And they said that because of the tax credits they're asking for, there are strings attached, and one is that it has to be apartments. I would have liked to see condominiums. It would be more revenue for the town. But allowing those tax credits dictates that they have to do apartments and a certain percentage of affordable housing.
Okay.
That's where that stands now, and I'm pretty sure the last plans we have from them are in the planning office. And another thing I wanted to jump in on, John, you had mentioned asking how is there funding or incentive for farmers to do grapes? And by the way, this area, if anybody's been to Sharp Hill, which is only, 20 miles away, it's a fabulous establishment. They grow their own grapes, and their wine is superior. So
What is this establishment?
Sorry?
What is it called?
Sharp Hill.
Sharp Hill.
It's in Connecticut.
Okay.
But not just wine and beer, which I love both. I like to eat too. And when the Economic Development Committee started in Dudley a few years ago, there was a Mr. O'Keefe it was his vision to bring in farming. Dudley could be a breadbasket with all the land we have. And he said that there were a lot of young farm people who would like to farm land from the Worcester area and willing to come to the area and lease land, but we never connected the dots. And
I can help you with that. Somebody in our office she wouldn't call herself an ag expert, but I would. And she's very familiar with the program you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get that information and get it on to ASAP.
Yeah, that was my 2 cents.
For the planning board, is there something that you would like to see in this economic development plan? Some sort of guidance on a particular issue or area?
I'm not sure.
Well, one of the things that I offered before that I thought would be a good idea if we could look at getting it in place is that I think when especially small businesses come to a town that they don't know and they want to try to do something, it can be overwhelming for them to go through all the permitting processes. And one of the things that I thought of was if we could get all the different committees and boards in line where we could use the same, we all have individual consultant engineers. If we could try to get one engineering firm that we could all agree upon and use it throughout the whole town, that way there, when we have a new business or anything coming into town that needs a permitting process, that we could streamline it for the people, rather than, okay, first you go to conservation and you got to talk to their consultant engineer, and then you're gonna go to the water and sewer board and see if that's permissible there, and you're gonna talk to their consultant engineer, and then you're gonna come to the planning board and we're gonna put you in front of another engineer. And also with the building department, to get everybody kind of working in line. And I thought, it would be great if, and I don't know how we do this, but if we could actually have a person that would be like a shepherd to help shepherd the process, through the people through the process. Maybe not forever, but, for one or two new businesses coming into town, if one person could shepherd it through, and then also maybe have like a town hall employee looking on, just to gain that knowledge, so that when other people come in, if that person's not around to help, because if there was 2 or 3 businesses coming at once, there's no way one person could handle it all. But if you had one business coming to town, one person could volunteer to shepherd it through, but have an employee of the town kind of follow you or shadow you to make sure that, or to gain some understanding as to how the process works, so that they can also help, these other departments could help. Maybe somebody from the Water and Sewer Board could watch one business go through the process, maybe somebody from the Building Department could watch, or the Board of Health could watch. And then once, I know we have a floater in town that just works in different departments, but see how the process is supposed to work and try to streamline it as much as possible, so that the people that do come in you don't want them to get discouraged on their first try, or if they come in and see it's, if it's above what they expect, they may just turn around and walk out or go to the next town that has all this in line already for them. I know Charlton, it seems like things get done in Charlton overnight. I work in Charlton, my company's in Charlton. I mean, they've gone to the town with huge, what I consider huge problems from way of infrastructure, zoning, and literally within 30 days it was solved. But they're probably the second or third largest employer in Charlton with 600 employees. But, I mean, yeah, we needed a street light on Route 20. It got put in. We needed agricultural land zoned for medical device manufacturing. They put an overlay district in, and it was voted in at the next town meeting. So, I mean, that's the kind of responsiveness I see from one town away. I don't know how we get to that point.
Why does every board have a different engineer? Do you have any idea? Anybody know?
I think a lot of it is each board, right, has got its own independent elected representatives and likes to consider themselves autonomous. And it's almost, from my experience, well, our board needs special expertise. When really they don't. Everybody needs special expertise. But I think Guy's onto something here. I mean, do we get to the point where town government actually hurts?
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest economic development constraints. So when site selectors or other people look to either expand their business or move to town, they're looking for usually one of 4 things. They're looking for a skilled and educated labor force. They're looking for tax incentives of some sort. They're looking for availability of pad-ready land. And number 4, they're looking for an easy permitting process. And really, as boards, the one that you can really, really affect is the ease of getting business done. I think I don't know if politically it's the easiest, but just through your regulations, you can streamline things to the point where you become either not business friendly or business friendly. So I have a very senior economic development sort of mentor, and he puts it just, oh God, what is it? He says, by right, okay, special permit, bad. Like, that's just how very blunt it is. So if you're not more business friendly than Webster, I mean, I know it depends on what kind of businesses you want to attract, but if you're not, it's not just okay to be, or it's not effective anymore just to be quasi-business friendly. You have to be actively marketing that in a sense. So there are a lot of best practices that I've learned in recent years from towns who have been able to streamline the permitting process to great success. So I think you're all onto something. And Guy, I can come up with a number of recommendations just kind of based on what you said. One of the things that's really, really successful, maybe not just having everybody have the same engineer, but interdepartmental coordinating meetings. I don't know if you are doing them, but not something codified, because then you get into open meeting and people don't necessarily, a developer coming in from the beginning maybe doesn't want to share his business plans, so something standing but less formal, where everybody, were from fire to highway to ZBA, can help guide the project from inception in an informal way so that you have consensus. Do you guys do it?
No.
I've been on the Economic Development Committee for a little while, and we've gone through this process before a few years ago, and we had all the boards in. We labeled all our infrastructure and streamlined the TIF program, and another project was streamline permitting, and all the boards said that they would, if we had an applicant, they would get together and meet together so they didn't have to go separately to each board at different times and so forth. But what didn't come up, and I didn't realize until tonight, was that they each require a separate engineer. So even though they were willing to get together, they still would have obviously had to go through separate engineering.
Yeah. Paul?
5 years ago, I approached Guy about the possibility of changing the town planner's position to a planner/engineer. Politically, that was viewed as an assault on Nancy, which it wasn't. It was what I thought we should do for the town. Guy even went so far as to gather data from all of the departments, sewer, water, planning, everybody, and determine how much money we spent on engineers individually. And then we did some research separately and then talked together about what it would cost to bring in a general engineer, all right? And the effort to remove the planner's salary and benefits from the budget at the town meeting and replace it with an engineer/planner was defeated. It was objected to by the planning board at that time, and it was defeated. But there's still a possibility we can do some things, but not on our own. It'll have to be in conjunction with another town. But we did think about that, and it isn't a massive cost over what we currently spend independently, and that person would be available 40 hours a week if we did it that way. Marcia said something really interesting about Connecticut, and I think we should not just absorb that, but think about that. Our regional dispatch center has room for a third town. It's Dudley and it's Webster. But people don't necessarily have a good view in terms of police work of both of those towns. So therefore, they have said no. Charlton, Oxford, all right? They're willing to go into one that has 5 towns. 5. I'll be curious to see how the state handles that. Now, we have an agreement with Webster, a regional dispatch. We have the last Green Valley, which is an asset. Northern Connecticut does not have what we are possibly looking at, and that is to develop and capitalize on a bucolic, nice, rural, agricultural economy. They have it, we have it, but we have it separately. And if we thought about regionalizing something between 2 towns in 2 separate states, that could be an interesting approach. We could have a year-round farmers market. It could be, and I'm thinking year-round, with a building, a prefab building put up to utilize some of the open space on West Main Street. We could have a year-round farmers market. I'm going to tell you this. My son Teague is a chef in Rhode Island. I mistakenly turned him on to the Kepke's farm with their grass-fed beef and their free-range chickens. Teague now comes up once a month, gratefully with our granddaughter, and buys food at Kepke's for 4, 5, and sometimes 7 families in Rhode Island. And he said that that beef, which we now get, my wife and I do, that beef is as close as you come to Kobe beef without being Kobe beef. And he comes up here and pays less than what he gets if he were to pay for grass-fed beef down Rhode Island. So it's worth the trip. We got assets. And maybe we need to look not at the box, but creating a new kind of container with some kind of cooperative effort, maybe with Woodstock or Pomfret.
Are those your direct abutting towns, Woodstock and Pomfret?
Thompson, Quinnebog, Woodstock, they're all, two of those three are abutters.
Okay.
I know if I go to Pomfret and Woodstock, I sneeze, I'm there. But I mean, I don't know if it's ever been done. But you got the people at this table.
Regionalizing certainly makes sense on a lot of things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But just like we look at the assets, we need to look at our liabilities, and going back to, Guy's point, I think we need that third-party view of ourselves in the mirror.
Okay.
And say, is our town government effective, and is it conducive to bringing business in? And if it's not, what tweaks do we need to make? Like, who would be the point person? Is it the planner? Is it the town administrator? Is it a town engineer, right? Does the town administrator have all the tools he needs with all of these various independent boards out there? I mean, he has to get their buy-in by selling them.
Yep.
There's really no authority
And we've
on a
got
lot
a
of
phenomenal
things.
town administrator.
Yeah, we do. So, would love, as part of the self-reflective, what does Dudley really like today?
Okay,
And what do we,
That we can do for you.
okay.
The other thing I was gonna say too is I think that, everybody's touched on it. We have Nichols College here, and we have, the student bodies here. And I think it's too bad that, every kid that goes there has to, go to Webster or Sturbridge or Southbridge to get an ice cream cone or go to the movies. I mean, the closest one is in Sturbridge, and there used to be a movie theater in Dudley, and there's none of that's here anymore.
Our
I mean,
building's open now.
And think of,
It was where Big Lots is.
right.
and think of how many business leaders go to Nichols, even for continuing education for their MBAs, and go through Dudley.
Right.
What is the existing relationship? Am I correct in my understanding there's a Nickel representative on the Economic Development
Yes.
Committee? Okay, great.
I'm new to the,
Yeah.
I mean, this is like my third meeting, so. But, I think that there's a definite interest, I think, in Nichols in having a prominent and helpful and contributing factor to, as goes Nichols, I believe, as goes Dudley, and vice versa. I would love to see, as somebody who works with the students directly, they leave here in droves on weekends because there's no place to work. There's not really a good place to sit down and eat, right? They're going to McDonald's over there. I would love to see a restaurant district kind of a thing that could provide some jobs and a nice, quiet place to go hang out and be, and, that's missing, and that would be wonderful.
Where are you located within the town?
We're up on up by the Grange, what's
Center
considered kind of the
Road.
center, Center
Okay.
Road.
Bit-
If you drive through, you'll see us.
We're enjoying, probably right now, we're enjoying the best relationship, the old phrase was the town gown. We're enjoying the best town gown relationships with Nichols than we have since the 50s.
Great.
Dr. Susan Engelmeyer is she's a good, community-oriented president, and that has filtered all the way down through all of her staff. So that's a great asset.
Yeah.
Even when I graduated from there in the early 90s, and even then, everyone left on weekends. And when people did go out, they'd go to Auburn.
Yep.
And this is when Sturbridge wasn't as built up. They'd go to Auburn or they'd go to Worcester. And that wasn't the safest thing in the world, them coming back, I'll be honest. But when people did go out on Wednesdays, they'd either go to, at the time it was Rainbow Gardens, but now it's Yummy's, or they would go to Webster sometimes. But most of the times they'd stay in, and sometimes that wasn't the greatest idea either. But I agree, even then, there wasn't anything to do. Every weekend, they would leave in droves.
And I
And every-
don't think people, I don't mean to interrupt you, I don't think students view Dudley as certainly it's a very safe place to be. I think we capitalize on that when we sell the campus because we're not in the middle of downtown wherever, but I think they don't view it as a college student-friendly place to be, just because there's not those outlets for them. And at other places I've worked for many years, you know, alumni come back and they settle because they had such an affinity for where they went to school, not just the campus, but the community. And, you know, I mean, we have young people that are leaving and graduating and getting fantastic jobs in the region, making great money, that I can't help but think, like, you know, when they're ready to settle down with their life partner, this is a great place to settle down. And, you know, I mean, I see it, I certainly meet people everywhere, but I don't see it a lot.
They're settling down on the other side of Worcester.
What is your student population, approximately?
I'm sorry,
What is your student population?
approximately 1,200 students.
Okay.
Not counting our master's level
Oh.
students, so that's our undergrads.
Yeah, one word of caution. I spent 31 years at a college in Worcester, and I could not tell you how many times efforts were made by the city to get college students to stay in Worcester. And they kept making the same mistake every year. They kept doing and causing to develop businesses that they perceived the students wanted. But they never went to the students. And when you've got a population where their demographics are either local or they're not, and what percentage of those demographics are local and which are not, you need to capitalize on the local demographics of the students in order to make it more attractive to the non-local demographic students. But you can't guess what they need. All right? You blow off a lot of money that way. You really do.
You have some ideas?
Are you saying we need a
I have the
survey?
group that can provide
I
it.
think Nichols, and there's enough classes and professors at Nichols, whether it's an entrepreneurship class or some other class, it's a business school. There's enough classes that we might be able to partner with them on class projects so that we're dealing with stated needs and not perceived needs.
In our master's level, our graduate and professional studies, there's a great push, I feel confident in putting it out there. They're trying to get into local businesses to do more of like the certifications, to bring the people who are employed in those institutions up to a higher degree of knowledge, to be a better workforce. And I know there's, you know, there would be an earnest
Last
attempt
year,
or want
yep.
to strengthen that in our local area. We would love to get into, you know, and we are in some of these places, IPG and whatever else, to do management training. And it's not a full-blown degree, but it's helping that workforce that's already there develop so they don't have to go out and find new people to come in. And
Phenomenal resource. Last year, the Blessed Backpack Brigade, is, most of you know what that does. One of the classes at Nichols, which is not taught every year, in entrepreneurship, one group in that class raised over $3,000 at an event solely for the benefit of the Backpack Brigade, and it was an event they did everything for. And that was, there were 3 groups in the class. This was one of them. And they did it down at Point Breeze and in more than one night. But in one semester, they raised over $3,000 for the Backpack Brigade. There's a lot of talent and emerging skills in that school.
And credit to President Engelmeyer, I think there's a bigger focus, and you're right, trickles down to the staff, of giving back to our very local community. We have done a lot in the last couple of years, and our students are really getting excited to do more. And that's a wonderful thing. We want to foster that.
Excellent, excellent. That's
Can I, John?
Sure.
Can I broach the issue of Dudley Days? Would that fit in with what we're talking about? Identity?
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, we can bring that up now, sure.
Right? Because I think it's part of an identity. This past Memorial Day, there was the Boy Scout yard sale, which did grossed, and it's become an annual thing. Originally, it was founded so that the troops could take the Boy Scouts to the first local international jamboree at Camp A.P. Hill in Virginia. They grossed $13,000, approximately, with this year's sale. In addition to that, you had the first annual Backpack Brigade's yard sale, right at the line, right in front of the Canty Dance Studio, which is a facility where we got agreement from the owner and whatnot. On that Saturday, you had Dudley Hands, Hands, which I've been on the board of directors for since it was founded, helping assist the needs of Dudley seniors. They had their toll booth, which we've done every year on that date. That money goes towards heating assistance for seniors who have to make a choice between food or heat. Okay? So I thought of and talked to John about it, and then began talking to some others. What if we had a town-wide, and it's not an original idea, what if we had a town-wide yard and plant sale on that weekend? Saturday, Sunday, Monday's a holiday. I talked with the people from the Dudley Land Trust. They're interested in doing it that weekend, because they do it the weekend before. I've talked to the Webster Dudley American Legion, out of respect for them, because it is Memorial Day. And the commander and vice commander said, we have no objection, but we don't meet again now till September. We'll take a vote on it then. My wife Laurie is talking with Stephen, our veterans agent, to see if he has any objections. So what we're thinking about is, and I asked John, could the Economic Development Committee take this over? It would be a 3- or 4-fold brochure, all color, paid for by the people. Paid for, we would list all of the people, we'd have a map and red pins in print on the map. And we would list anyone who's having a yard sale that weekend, and we would list them alphabetically by street. And they would pay $5 to have their yard sale and the times and the address on a pinpoint in that brochure. We would then sell those, as Millbury does, beforehand and that day, to people who want to go around. Then I talked to some of the businesses in town, restaurants. Would they be willing to have a Dudley Days special menu item? They would love to do that. I talked to other businesses that don't provide food. Would they be interested in doing a special that day? Yeah, tell us when you're going to do it. So it's not an original idea in terms of a town-wide yard sale. But if we got our farmers, our organic people, our plant people, right, and specials with the, I mean, we might have a wonderful traffic jam. We might do that. But it would be something that the community does, not individual people, and tie it all together in one day, or 2 days, actually. Anyways, that's the thoughts of Dudley Days.
I was attending a workshop in the Boston-Cambridge area on economic development, and I had the privilege of taking a walking tour with the president of the Harvard Square Business Association. And it, as you know, it's a major, major tourist area. And the real takeaway I got from that is even Harvard Square needs programming in order to get people into their businesses. They absolutely spend a great deal of time and money conceptualizing and advertising. You know, it's coffee bean day, so everything that's coffee colored's on sale, and you get coffee ice cream, and you know, whatever it is. So if Harvard Square needs programming, I think you're onto something. Everywhere needs programming in terms of supporting its retail. I was lucky enough also, I have some, I don't have them with me, but I have some sort of gifts for you guys. I was able to get a leakage analysis, sort of a bare bones leakage analysis performed for Dudley. So we have some idea of where you have market potential in retail across 12 major subcategories and all the 12 major retail categories and all the subcategories within them. So I think that might be helpful for you. It's a little off topic from what you were talking about, but I think in terms of retail, that should provide at least some guidance. So.
One more thing that I'm gonna either go or be quiet. If I can't be quiet, I'll go. I would never want to say that Dudley is a rose between two thorns. I would never do that. But if I were to describe Dudley and what we're trying to be, I would say a breath of fresh air and let people draw their conclusion as to what that means. Dudley is a breath of fresh air. And if we combine with Woodstock or Pomfret or whoever, it's still a breath of fresh air. I'm done. I'll be quiet.
Fair enough.
I just have one.
Sure.
Is there anything going into Big Lots that we know of?
Not yet that we know of.
No interest yet?
No, not yet.
Do you have any sort of interaction with the major employers here, the largest?
We're just starting that now. We started reaching out individually. We just got approved. We got to wait for the Attorney General's final sign-off for the town meeting warrant. But we should have 2 alternate members on the board. And our intention is to reach out to the Henke Sass and the Webcos and see if they'd like to have a seat at the table here.
Wonderful. So there's been a consistent theme here tonight about agricultural-based businesses, and it makes a lot of sense given that that's one of your huge assets. Does anybody have a alternative vision for economic development or another type of economic development that they'd like to see incorporated or that they think would also be successful here?
On the agricultural aspect, you mentioned that Putnam or Woodstock or their farmers market is year-round. Hydroponics accelerates year-round year-round vegetables, fresh lettuce, fresh tomatoes. I would love to see something hydroponic in our town. If we have people if there's people watch this on TV, maybe somebody's thinking about that, but that enables you to have. I know one of the hydroponic farms provides Whole Foods with fresh vegetables locally year-round. So anyway, just throwing that idea out.
Yeah, that's an acknowledgement that I lied. That's an acknowledgement that Southbridge and Webster each have assets that we don't have and we never will have. And we can't compete with that. But we have assets that aren't hidden, they're just not known about, that are unique, that it would be hard for them to duplicate. So we each have our strengths and we need to capitalize on our uniqueness, and acknowledge their strength for what they have.
Beach for me. We have a beach.
Dairy Queen.
That really needs help, but has so much potential. That can be definitively, if that would be a part of whatever the plan that you can present to us, that would make me very happy. I also think that Nichols College, of course, but also our lower schools. Shepherd Hill is a great school. We have a great students getting to great colleges. We have outstanding football team, which I know attracts many younger families, just because of that. We have a show choir that is one of the best in the country, in small little town of Dudley. We have so many talented younger kids that I see not necessarily have an outlet beyond those schools to share their talents with the town people or the surrounding towns. So like I said, some art center that would supplement the library that is beautiful, but is lacking, or maybe a little theater, maybe a little arts gallery, something for those kids. to be involved in community, on that perspective.
Dominique, I'm just gonna ask this question because I don't know how you do it, and I don't know if anybody else here knows how to do it, but how do you get a nationwide name chain to come to the town for like, you mentioned Dairy Queen. I mean, there's only two Dairy Queens around here, one's in Milford and one's in Spencer. And even Spencer, people think Spencer's close, but to drive to Spencer for ice cream is quite a haul.
But I have done that, so I think people would.
Yeah.
It is a haul. It's about,
We talked about it.
I'm not an expert in that area, although I hope to be someday, but I have some ideas.
I know one of the new, it's a chain, but I know one of the new chains is taking off and everybody's crazy about it. My daughter will drive 45 minutes to go there, and it's Chick-fil-A. Every town that's got one, you can't get into it. They're not open on Sundays, and it doesn't even hurt their business. How do you get a Chick-fil-A or a Dairy Queen to come to Dudley?
So most of that's actually up to the corporation. And so what happens is you get an entrepreneur like Chick-fil-A. Say, I want to open a Chick-fil-A franchise. You apply to them and say, I'd like to be a franchisee, so to speak. The first thing they do is kind of a background and then what area you're looking at. They see if the area is sold or if the right is already given to someone else. And then they have these full demographic studies that they've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that tell you everything about population, income, how many times they shop, what the busiest roads are, traffic counts, all that stuff. And then, someone like a Chick-fil-A, you don't actually ever own a Chick-fil-A. They always own it. You manage it for them, and you make about $150,000 to $200,000 a year. But other franchises, you got to go to the company, and it's all spurred almost from the ground up.
But could the town entice that by, I don't know, do we have any town-owned land on West Main Street or someplace that we could say, look, we'll give you a deal on this piece of land if you want to buy it, or we'll lease it to you?
That's interesting, because you've got some property on West Main Street from the Webster line that is owned by people who could afford to purchase and open a franchise of a national chain. And they would need to be encouraged.
So get a bunch of residents, we'll start the Dudley Private Investment Fund, and we'll all chip in. And entrepreneurs can come for loans, microloans from us to get started.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just, but for the town to, the town will never really run a business like that. It's not in its
Have we talked
charter.
about getting a paid position within the town, a part-time, or why not, to be a marketing department? Because I see that as nothing else but, a person or the unit being responsible for solely marketing us, as basic as it sounds. 'Cause
That's really our job.
I know,
We,
but,
we're unpaid marketers. That's what we have to become.
Right, but you have to stay on it, constantly, because our assets are changing too. The land availability, all kinds of zoning issues, all that you see today here. There has to be somebody who actually hold the hand on those changes and is attracting the people that actually we can accommodate. I know that I wouldn't be able to guess. I think when we're approaching those bigger players, we need to make sure that we know that we have what they need. Maybe that you can help us with to, point those people, locate those players.
So I know that a lot of the towns that we work with and provide the free assistance to, they also have small economic development funds. Do you have a fund like that? No.
No, that would be wonderful.
Right, well, let me see what I can find out then.
Okay. So Dominique, I'm sorry, Ellen.
Two other things that we have. We have a golf course.
Okay.
Very nice golf course. And there's also two rivers. We're bordered by the French River and the Quinnebog River.
Yep.
And we have the rail trails.
Yep.
Yes, of course.
So Dominique, how can we look forward to you staying in touch with us and letting us know of your progress?
So you've seen the timeline, and so kicking off really the beginning of this coming new fiscal year, data collection, I envision that through July and August, if that seems reasonable to all of you. Public workshop of some sort in early fall, and have the project completely closed out no later than December, because that's when our funding needs to be spent by.
Okay.
Does that timeline sound, one, fast enough, two, realistic? Okay.
Turn it around.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I see where the cost, proposed cost of Phase 1
Yes.
is $12,000. What would the total cost be? And the reason I'm going to ask that is, do you have 12,000?
No, my understanding is, I thought this was a grant.
It's a grant.
Yeah, this is
entirely
free.
a
This is
grant.
free.
It's provided to you by us from the legislature. So,
For Phase 2 and Phase 3,
so
I'm thinking long-term. Are
So-
those likely to be funded by grants? Or are we going to need some money set aside in future budgets to continue Phase 2 and Phase 3?
So I can try to answer that and then have you chime in if you have a different answer. So we've been really lucky to get district local technical assistance funding for 8 years. This 8 years in a row from the state. It's, this last year it was a little bit of a hurdle to get it passed, but this year it's in the governor's budget itself. So we feel good about getting DLTA funding again. And I think it's funded at the same amount. So I imagine that we should be able, with any luck, be able to see you through subsequent phases. I've also, right now I'm working on a full-blown economic development strategic plan for one of the towns in the Blackstone Valley, and that was funded through the Community Compact. I know that you have some Community Compact best practices that you've signed up for, but last that I knew, economic development wasn't one of them, but you had room to choose one more. So if, at last I knew. So if you identified economic development as best practice, you might be able to get funding to have a more comprehensive plan. And since we're doing all of this legwork, you could probably have something really good by getting in, you know.
Excellent. What I am going to do, before because we're going to keep this public hearing kind of ongoing, so I guess I'm going to recess the public hearing at the end of this. But I will open it up to the general public if anybody would like to add anything at this point. You sure?
The only thing I have to say is that noise, the pink noise or whatever, the white noise coming from that, whatever, makes it really hard to hear. I mean, I don't know if it affects the TV or not, but it's like, you know, you're talking shower, so you want the FBI here.
Okay.
So are you going to continue
Yeah, yeah,
this public hearing until your next meeting date?
yeah, we're going to continue the public hearing.
Okay.
We opened it at our last public meeting. We're
saw
just
that,
going to
yeah.
continue so we can keep gathering input. My open invitation on behalf of all of our board is the planning board and the board of selectmen. This board is created from your appointments, right? Because your two boards are the appointing boards for the Economic Development Committee. You are always welcome here. There will always be a table or seat available, but don't ever feel like, you know, you got to call ahead of time, whatever, just show up.
This is very interesting. I mean, just hashing it all out and the ideas and stuff like that, so I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. And our goal is, if we're open, transparent, people at home kind of know what we're doing, when the time comes to make some tough decisions and vote at town meeting, they'll know why. That it's all part of a larger plan.
Right.
So, Dominic, we look forward to staying in touch with you and working with you.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for
Thank you
having me.
very much for coming.
And you have my card, so please feel free to reach out if you have any ideas, want to chat, have any questions, anything.
Thanks.
Nice
All right,
to see you.
thank you.
That's great.
Do you need us anymore?
No, so what I'll do
Want us
is I'll give a
anymore.
1 or 2 minute recess, let people stretch their legs, and then we'll continue on with our normal business. We'll wrap that up quick.
The
Thank-
person who called me was Peter Fox. He misses it so much.
Thank you very much again for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the invitation.
I really like that Dudley
2-minute
Days
recess, Fred?
idea.
Yeah,
I really do like that.
I'm realizing now that
What we used
$5
to have it,
more
we used to have it once or twice at the Nichols College.
so.
Hell, they'll
At the
make
beginning, no, like a Dudley Day. We didn't do it in the form of fundraising, all that, but we had a day and we have invited.
Which doesn't mean we
It
can't
was in the
solicit
beginning
a
of this,
donation.
5-6 years ago. And that was pretty cool, actually.
And whatever's left over.
At Nichols, as there was at the
Yeah,
center of the town.
Yeah, was that the one one that they sponsored, like the Dudley
It's
lunch
not
or
like,
whatever
it's not like
it
we're
was?
going out to dinner with it. I mean, you take it and you give it to someone.
But
These
it
are
was
the
the actual Derby days.
minutes. Evan, welcome aboard. Best of luck to you.
Glad I was here. It's
Congratulations.
certainly
Oh.
the future of the town.
Some of that sounded
Hopefully
like
we can hash out a
cannabis. What are you
successful
doing?
plan. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you very much.
We have a faith in you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. I have something that I was getting to.
Hi, Steve. Good, hi, Paul.
So here's what I have noticed. This is completely out of.
I didn't know it was up there on the jury, was it?
Because I'm Polish, right? It's no surprise there. I have seen so many. I have seen so many Polish, so many Russian, so many European people migrating because I deal with the insurance and legal aspects for all those people. You know, I'm translating and all those things. You know what I feel that we are lacking, and maybe Nikos could or you could think of it. ESL. Some kind of evening classes for these people, because I'm tired of trying. No, I'm kidding. But I feel bad, you know. If you can put some thought into it, I can teach. I used to do it at Worcester State years ago. My time is somehow
You know,
limited.
a lot of times when people think of the ESL, students.
European, I'm telling you, Czech, it's a literally migration because they open up the borders.
Yep.
So they come in without visas, and that's what they were doing. So Czechs, Russian, all around, Polish people definitely, all in within that ESL, just helping them in general to understand how to get to Nichols, how to actually go to college, because they
Right.
want to go.
Sure.
Because they, you know, those people coming from Europe, they so much ahead, and we grew up in communism when everybody's supposed to go to school. So they come in here, they can't find themselves, you know, and they, by all means, they need to learn the basics. They need to.
3 years ago.
But even beyond this, you know, when you even go to Quincy or the TOEFL, when you take the TOEFL test, all kinds of things like that. That's what I mean.
So that's,
We don't
they're
have
the
it.
landlord.
We want those people
like
because they're
anything,
good people. They work hard.
It's gotta
they
be an
do everything,
individual
you know, and they
that
wanna
takes
stay,
the
they
risk.
like it there. I mean, the Webster is a Polish town, you know, I mean, in a sense, but those people want to be, they pride, you know, to be,
Yeah.
Polish
Exactly.
or why not?
I have some people
That's a
ask
good
about
idea.
that, because that's a good idea.
Dudley
Absolutely.
And you can use me.
Right?
Nice on the
Did you hear about the school out in California that did that for SNAP?
because I feel so
No.
bad, because the
They
next
got like
step
tens of
after
millions
that
of
also
dollars
is
from the
somebody within
IPO.
is
For,
applying
it was like a
citizenship.
$20,000, $30,000
And then it
investment.
requires them to read it. You know, they have to write, and they have to understand how to fill out the paperwork, they just have to know it.
Yep.
So that would be wonderful, you can do, I could definitely help them.
I will drop your name, but I will drop
you
the
go.
idea, because I know.
Throw some money in Dudley Investment Fund, you know?
Thank you so much.
That'd be very interesting.
Great conversation, absolutely. Absolutely.
You are in love, you don't know what you're talking about. Your mind is somewhere.
He's in love.
Yes.
All right, we ready to go back into session? We'll try to be quick with this. I know this is a long meeting. I appreciate everyone being patient.
Oh, this is
I think
wonderful. It's
everybody
great. She
should.
was
I don't
great.
like round tables.
She was very, very
Fred, you
knowledgeable.
ready
She
to
was
go?
very pleasantable, you know?
Yeah.
All right. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. So next on the agenda was the accept the minutes of May 17th, 2017. Did everyone have a chance to review them?
Yes.
All right. The Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of May 17th. Ellen made the motion.
Second.
Barbara seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All right, next on the agenda, we have brochure discussion, update on internet trends. Let's hold off on the brochure discussion, just, we'll kind of do that last. Update on the internet transaction area. The sign is up in the parking lot. So the online exchange area is now set up. So what I will do is I will do a kind of a post on behalf of the Economic Development Committee on the website that just reminds people how to conduct safe online transactions and that it is available, that even though it's there, we can't guarantee security, but it's always a pretty good place to conduct a transaction with someone you don't know.
Is it something we can get into, like the Webster Times, maybe the Chiefs?
Actually, the Webster Times, Jason actually did a really nice article on that.
I missed it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when it was first done, But you know what? I'll see if we can get permission to maybe throw it on the, to link to it.
Yeah,
We'll actually throw it on the website as well.
Good idea.
yep.
So I was really pleased, and I have a picture of the sign if anyone wants to see that. I'll put that on the website as well. We did get a request from the Quinnebog Trail and Bikeway request, and I have copies of the letter. This is from Ken, who was at our last meeting. They're looking for our support for a grant. I have fat fingers, so you gotta excuse me. Basically, there's a section of the rail trail to make ADA compliant. They're helping to design what's called the Beaver Pond Loop Trail to ADA criteria, and the National Park Service Design Assistance Program is something that they're pursuing. So if the board doesn't mind, could I draft, well, I'd like to vote on it, that the board support the Dudley Trail and Greenway Network in this effort. We'll draft a nice letter on behalf of the board and get that over for their submission package to the National Park Service.
Absolutely.
Is somebody willing to make a motion to, that the Economic Development Committee support the Dudley Trail and Greenway Network?
So moved.
All right,
Second.
seconded. All right, so Marcia made the motion. Ellen second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All right, so that's done. I did want to point out, on the website, I did put on a Central Mass Regional Planning little booklet on Dudley. It's called a Community Snapshot. So if you haven't had a chance to look on it on the website, it's there. It gives you our current population, road conditions. I have a feeling a lot of this will be incorporated in the planning that they do. All right, but this can kind of give you a preview, workers and stuff like that. I just thought it was informative as background on this. So the next thing is our favorite topic. The brochure. When Selectman Joseph told me about doing a brochure for this,
That's what I
almost fell off my chair.
Oh, no.
Will be experienced.
I think it's a great idea, but I don't want to be doing any more brochures after this.
No, that's it.
So PJ's been doing some work about, she's got some volunteers helping her out.
Not me, it's all them, honestly.
It's all them.
Yep, it's a woman named Lorraine Martinelli who works for the college. She's the Director of Public Relations and Communications, and certainly part of her job scope is community relations, and she's an excellent editor and has does this full-time at the college scale, and so and she's from Dudley. So
Nice.
she really wants to give back to the community and is willing to work on this project for us, and we talked about having like one voice when you talked to about the text, and she's taken an initial stab at it here, but that's just in the last couple days since we've gotten it, and I think either we can sit down with her and communicate a little bit more. Some of the things that Dominique had brought up, I think, are going to be very interesting to see if we can incorporate it in there. But I basically told her your directive, which is take the text and cut it down by 2/3, and she's attempted to do that initially, and I think she's done a good first go at it, but still kind of keep the character of what was there. And this sends people to a website. We can't have all that text out there on this brochure. So just some ideas that she started, and I am not going to take any credit for it. Lorraine is the one who's really stepped up and done a lot of work with it. So, if we're interested in kind of having that one voice, I think she's, this is an area of expertise for her, and if she's watching at home, she's going to love that. But it could be just kind of the momentum we need to just take what we have and get to the next level and get it out there. More pictures, less but more intentional text. Let's go. Let's get it off the plate.
Yeah.
So, use our resources.
Already,
This is nice.
she's nailed it. I mean,
This is really
and I
nice.
think you know, with her, that being her skill set, to be able to objectively put the right verbiage.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
it's gotta pop.
In as few words as possible.
Yes.
So, you know, and some of the things are just placeholders or what have you, but
No?
I think there's a lot of direction here, and, you know, I guess I would implore the board to, let's let Lorraine help us.
Seriously.
To just
I
get
just
it
read the
done.
first paragraph, and I'm like, God, I'm lucky I live in Dudley, jeez.
I like the title.
Who wouldn't want to live
So,
in this small
is it the board's consensus that we should just let Lorraine run with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right?
I think if there's more critical information you want to put in there, like, do we want population in here? Do we want average income in here? Those kinds of things. I think a couple little nuggets, but
I don't think we need it.
we're trying to keep it as a resource to get to a website, get our wonderful pictures that we've been
Yeah.
collecting in there, and let's let her have it, so.
And on that, in regards to the map, didn't Dominique say that she was?
Map,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, so that's one of the first things I'm gonna do on Monday, is I'm gonna call her.
Right.
And, it may be going into Worcester, I'll see if anybody wants to come with me. But, you know, this map that somebody had just gave us, from the Webster Dudley Business Alliance.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right? I mean, this is nice for a business, but what I like about it is its kind of simplicity. And so what I'm thinking is, we use the same size format, just call it like generically business-friendly zoning, and then maybe just highlight the areas
Yeah.
where we'd like to target our business. And just say, you know, flexible. And then, you know, what I did notice on the Central Mass Regional Planning already, they do have a map already, and this is what interesting, that does have the infrastructure, trails. And so to see if they could overlay that in that map without it cluttering, because I thought the feedback that we got from Ed and Ken last meeting, very valuable. It's just too much.
Well, I think if, you know, on this end, if we can get the text set,
Yes.
and then the rest of it will fall into place, and
So,
take away pictures to add that, and
so on
structure.
the financial side with this brochure, that was a job unto itself, trying to track down all this stuff. I thought I brought it.
Look at this right here.
Well, that's definitely part of it. We only have received, there's $2,500 in town meeting. There is $500, which Ellen, you did a great job tracking that down. We got confirmation this morning. They found where it was from WebGo. All right?
Oh, that's great.
And a private donation for $200. There is no, I believe Nichols paid Kelly direct.
Oh, I don't know if it was ever cashed.
All right, so, but the town, because the transaction didn't go through the town has no record of it. We
Right.
can never have a transaction like that again. Everything has to go, we have dedicated
yeah.
accounts in town.
Yep.
So it's hearsay, because when I looked at the original list, there was a whole bunch of different donations that were on that. None of those are real. None of those donations ever came in.
Yeah, they were
We never,
commitments.
yeah, but
Was that in the email
right,
that
it
you
was
sent?
never concluded,
Was
so
that in
we
the
only
email
were
that you sent?
waiting for them to send
It
us.
might have been.
Yeah.
Just looking for, I had everything like,
I think so, 'cause I don't know if it was cashed.
Yeah, I thought I read it, yeah.
I mean, find out.
yeah. So the question for the board is, we already have the precedent set that WebCo had paid $500 to become a sponsor. Now, if I recall correctly, for 2,500 brochures was $1,875, right?
I have those numbers, yeah, I know.
The allocation was approved up to $3,000 if they were going to actually write the text and provide the photographs, which doesn't look like they're doing. Right, they're just kind of laying out, because we're doing all that stuff. So the amount that the Board of Selectmen authorized was a maximum expenditure of $3,000 on this brochure.
But John, we never really that was left at the stage of, okay, are you interested in the brochure? Are you willing to not so much pay for an ad per se, but are you willing to help us out to get it printed? And people, were saying, yeah, sure, just count it out when the time comes. That's how that was left. And that second phase was never, in other words, we never approached them, right, to actually write us those checks because we didn't know how long it's going to take to actually produce it. So, and I only know from my boss, from O'Connor, I know he said, I thought there was a done deal, I'm just waiting to write you a check. That's what he said. And that's, I bet you, it's the approach that other people did have.
Yeah.
So they're waiting for us to tell them, give me the money.
So in order to do this, because again, we are a government entity, we need to advertise. So something as simple as putting it on the website, saying that
Giving
the
the
Economic
public-
Development Committee is offering businesses the opportunity to sponsor,
Yeah, that's how that was.
The
before.
brochure.
Yeah, sponsor.
okay? And right now, it looks like we ask for $500, and WEPCO, that's what, so you can't do anything less than what WEPCO has given.
For the same size. You
Well,
have
well,
to be
but-
just, in a sense,
So, but in looking at the brochure, and this is what the board has to determine, what is the sponsorship? Is it just a listing? I thought the sponsorship was going to be just the listing here.
None of those people were willing to pay.
No, I understand that. So exclude the people that are there, but my understanding is that we were gonna reserve the one back panel.
And that's what they get.
That's
for
how
the
it should
$500.
be, yeah. That was the original
And
thought.
is that the intention, was that your original intent when you guys came up with this a couple years ago? All right, so it was that, the back panel would be the sponsorship.
Yes, yeah.
And then we have those levels, right? But then we
But
went
when
away
you
with the
say,
levels.
okay, so everybody is the same size ad?
I think that's how it should be.
That's how it
Everybody
should-
should
that's-
have the same
right?
size.
Should we, in addition to the website, should we do something like in the Webster Times or a local paper for those who aren't seeking us out on our website?
No, I just want to be really transparent about the whole process.
Yeah,
I don't want people saying, well, geez, why did this business have an opportunity to sponsor and I didn't? So I just want to throw it out there.
Right.
We'll do a post saying that we're seeking donations to do this. We'll put a copy of the back panel, what it is going to look like,
Giving everybody the opportunity.
$500.
okay.
If we get 10 people, have to be 2 panels, and we'll have to figure out how to adapt it at that point.
But my point is, those who aren't really looking at us and looking at our website, should we do it in the paper as well, to be totally transparent? Because a lot of businesses don't come on our website.
But, so we have an annual operating budget of $100.
Yeah. Oh,
It'll cost us about $180
okay.
to run a legal notice. Now,
Okay.
you could take it out of the funds dedicated, towards the brochure, but I would rather reserve that for a possible public hearing notice or some other endeavor.
Money's always
We
an
can,
issue.
we can do this brochure at this point, at the price we got, without any sponsors.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
There's enough. So, does the board want to have sponsors of the brochure?
Good question. But we've already had donations.
Oh, we could refund it and save it for another effort. I would like to get sponsors, because if we could get some local Dudley businesses and whatever to appear in here,
Right,
They will
absolutely.
make others think how do I get that
and
present?
then the excess, what we'll do is we'll put into the Economic Development Committee, account.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
think so.
Yeah,
think so.
I would like to see sponsors on there as well.
How about, restaurants? Maybe they can't afford 500, but they want to be listed.
It's $500.
Yep. Cost
I think there should be some leeway.
But where do you draw the line,
Well,
right? You get into the slippery slope.
$500, you put it in a larger print,
But then
smaller print.
So where do we do that? Where do you list them,
Such a limited space.
right? And what if every restaurant wanted it? Then all of a sudden, the brochure becomes an ad,
Yeah.
advertising, it becomes the Webster Dudley Business Alliance piece, right? You know, we had talked about, right now, we list all the restaurants on the website and stuff. And we do that at no cost to them. Eventually, it'd be nice to get that a little bit more interactive so that, you know, as they zoom in, it appears. But I'm trying to keep it only Dudley. I don't want restaurants in the surrounding towns to come up in our results right now. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, so if every restaurant did want to put an ad in, and what if a restaurant from out of town? You can't restrict them. Because we're a government, we're a government body. You can't say this is, if you put something out there and say this is available, anybody who's willing to pay that price has to be given the same opportunity.
I think this is good.
So we'll just keep it, the one big,
Right.
the ads here.
One flat and you have.
And it's $500.
Advertise it out on the website.
Okay.
And it's like sponsoring anything else. It's like sponsoring a golf tournament for the local chamber or things like that. They send it out they put it on their website, they do things, and then, you know, if you want to do it, and if you want to have that company, your insurance agency or your construction company, be that, you know, centerpiece showing that you are really sponsoring something, that you're going to pay the $500, just for the recognition, but to show your support and goodwill for the town. That's my thought.
All right. So right now, Webco is the only official sponsor that we have. Well, I know he will sponsor, but he's not right now.
Right, because those people are waiting for us to tell them,
Yes.
give me the money. Because
And-
it's actually
and we'll
happening,
be-
they don't believe it, that's what happened.
I'll get this thing up on the website in the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah, but you see what I mean,
Yep.
they're waiting for us to tell them to pay.
Yep. But
Gentex, I can't believe they not, that,
Besides O'Connor, do we have other promises that you have in mind?
there is a list. I am going to
that's
reach
the one
out.
I'm responsible, but you had the list, what is that
Yeah.
list?
Ellen did,
Send it to you.
yeah, Ellen created a really nice list of people going through the minutes and from that she recalled who had committed to doing stuff. So I'll reach out to them. But what we wanted firm confirmation from the town accountant and you know, the treasurer's office. What actually,
Exists,
what's real
yeah,
and what's a promise. So we're in good shape.
okay.
And when they do want to write that check, who are they writing it
Yep.
for, and
We-
where are they giving that check?
Yep, there's an account number and the town accountant, it'll go through her and she will credit everything.
Have it on your paper.
Yeah, that's right. Ellen, I think, actually printed that out.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
on this one.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Yeah, so Ellen, thank you very much for all of your due diligence and hard work to help it. It was like Sherlock Holmes we were
Maybe
playing
it was
on
better
that
that nobody
one.
pay us, because we were looking for all.
All right, does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add? It's a long meeting tonight. I appreciate everyone being patient. All right, our next meeting is going to be scheduled for July 21st, I believe, right? Or
July 19th on here.
July 19th?
Yeah.
Yes. Fred, is that what you have too, July 19th? All right. So with that, known business, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, you guys made the motion. Second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, Todd, second.
Yeah, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, folks.
Great seeing
Fred,
everybody.
thank you very much
That was it.
again.